It was rare for me to get to my brother's place 30 minutes early. Usually, I meticulously planned these family get-togethers, arriving at the appointed hour and departing as soon as courtesy permitted. Today, however, felt different. I wanted to be early today. For once, I had wonderful news to share. And I had the hope that my family would be pleased for me. Through afternoon traffic, Clayton's suburban home was 45 minutes away from downtown Phoenix. Knowing that the barbecue would begin at 5, I had left my flat at 3:30. I needed time to assist with setup, to be helpful, and to let them know that despite everything, I still cared about being a member of this family. Clayton's house was a large ranch-style property with a well-kept lawn that was located at the end of a peaceful cul-de-sac. He never allowed anyone to forget that this life was made possible by his success in commercial real estate development. At 4:25, a number of automobiles were already in the circular driveway as I pulled in. I recognized some of them as belonging to different family members, including my cousin Julian's vehicle and my sister Victoria's white sedan. I picked up my homemade potato salad from the passenger seat and headed for the front door. As usual at family gatherings, the house was unlocked. Even if his heart was firmly locked to the majority of us, Clayton believed in open doors for family. There was silence, and no one was in the foyer. From someplace near the rear of the house, I could hear voices. Most likely the terrace. On the kitchen counter, I placed the potato salad between bowls of open chips and trays of meat that were waiting to be grilled. I could see the backyard setup via the kitchen window. A smoldering grill, tables with red checkered tablecloths, and people mingling while sipping beers. "Bella should be here soon," Clayton remarked, his voice echoing through the open sliding glass door. I was about to head outside when I heard my name. She texted to say she would be arriving early to assist. With my hand on the door handle, I hesitated. I hesitated because of something in his tone. Victoria said sarcastically, "Oh, fantastic," adding, "I can't wait to hear about her spectacular new life in detail." The group erupted in laughter, and I knew the voices. My entire family, including my Aunt Patricia, my Uncle Leonard, Julian, and a few others, congregated and seemed to be talking about me. Clayton went on, "You know, she is only coming to brag about her new job, director of marketing at some boutique hotel chain. She probably expects us all to bow down and worship her success. Remember when she worked at that coffee shop?" Noted Victoria. "And before that, the retail business. Now all of a sudden, she believes she is superior to everyone else." Patricia continued, "Even as a child, she believed she was unique." My hand slipped off the handle of the door. As my relatives tore me apart, I stood motionless in the kitchen. Victoria said, "It would be nice if there was an accident and she never showed up," in a light-hearted and humorous tone that sounded like she was talking about the weather. The group burst out laughing, saying, "Then we could actually enjoy ourselves without her constant need for attention and validation." Not anxious laughs or courteous giggles, but real, authentic laughing. But burst out laughing at the thought of me being killed or injured. I cautiously and gently retreated from the entrance, being careful that my footsteps would not reveal my identity. I was afraid they could hear my heart thumping through the walls. I put my purse on the counter and retrieved it with trembling hands. Even at the age of 35, my family still treated me as though I were unimportant, a joke, and a bother that they hoped would go away. I let them wonder where the potato salad had come from and gave them the impression that I had never been there. I went back inside, slid out the front door, and opened it as softly as I could. I didn't want them to hear the engine start, so I chose to walk down the street since my car was still parked in the driveway. I paused and leaned against a tree 2 blocks distant in an attempt to collect my breath. Even though tears were burning behind my eyelids, I fought the need to cry. I had already shed too many tears for my family. I had worked for decades to gain their affection, their respect, and their basic humanity. I was now aware of the reality. They didn't simply brush me off. They deliberately wanted to hurt me. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. Clayton texted. "You're where? I assumed you would arrive early." For a long time, I gazed at the message. I then accessed my contacts and scrolled to locate the required name. Since college, Denise had been my closest friend. She had seen my family's casual cruelty throughout the years and had repeatedly pushed me to cut them out of my life since she was the only one who really understood what they were like. I gave her a call. She said, "Hey," on the second ring. I said, "Are you not supposed to be at the barbecue? I need your help," in a remarkably composed voice. 3 miles from Clayton's house, Denise met me at a coffee shop and said, "And I need you to trust me." I sat at a booth in the corner, peering out the window at the parking lot with my hands wrapped around a cup of tea that I had no intention of drinking. She moved to the seat on the other side of me. Her face was marked with concern. "What took place?" "On the phone, you came across as agitated." I told her everything. Every utterance I had heard, every chuckle, every sarcastic jest directed at me. Her face had changed from worry to rage by the time I was done. "I will kill them," she declared bluntly. "Right now, I'm going to take a car to their house and tell them all exactly what I think." "No, I have a better idea," I answered. I described my strategy. I needed them to understand, even though it was straightforward and sometimes cruel. For a brief period, I needed them to experience what it was like to truly care about me, to worry about me, to feel regret for what they had said. As she listened, Denise's eyes widened with every detail. She was silent for a while after I was done. "Are you certain about this?" she finally inquired. "They wished I would be in an accident," I replied. "Let's demonstrate to them what that feels like." Slowly, she nodded. "All right, I'm in. What am I supposed to do for you?" I checked the time on my phone and said, "Call Victoria in 20 minutes. Now it was 4:50. Officially, the barbecue had begun. "Act as though you are a Phoenix General Hospital nurse. Inform her that I am in critical condition following a severe auto accident. Make it seem important, but be evasive about the specifics. Inform her that she must arrive right now." Then what? We then observe their response. I suggested we check to see if they show up merely to keep up appearances or if they genuinely care. When Denise took out her phone, Victoria's number was already shown. My caller ID might be blocked. Give the impression that it is coming from the medical facility. "Have you done this before?" I raised an eyebrow in question. "During my 3 years of graduate school, I worked in a hospital," she remarked. "I am fully aware of their speech patterns and how they break terrible news. I can convince you of this." For the following 15 minutes, we reviewed the specifics, including what to say, how to say it, what information to provide, and what to omit. Denise's voice was ideal for this type of call because it was inherently authoritative. She rehearsed several times, modifying her voice until it sounded suitably somber and polished. She made the call at 5:10. As she spoke, I observed her look, which was neutral yet concentrated. "Hi, is this Victoria?" "Jessica, a nurse, is phoning from the emergency room of Phoenix General Hospital. I'm phoning with reference to Bella, your sister. After a terrible car collision on Interstate 10, she was brought in approximately 40 minutes ago." She stopped and listened. "She is in critical condition. She suffered severe internal injuries as well as head trauma. Family members must arrive as soon as feasible. Are you able to visit the hospital immediately?" One more pause. I must stress that time is of the essence, but I am unable to provide specifics over the phone. Kindly proceed to the main emergency door. Request Trauma Bay 3. After hanging up, she turned to face me. Completed. She's going crazy. In the background, I could hear people. I'm sure she's informing everyone already. I nodded as an eerie serenity descended upon me. We're waiting now. We drove separately to a parking garage across the street from Phoenix General Hospital after leaving the coffee shop. We could see the emergency entry well from the 3rd floor. I parked my car and got into Denise's, grabbing a pair of binoculars I kept in my trunk for hiking excursions and snuggling into the passenger seat. Denise remarked admiringly, "You actually thought this through?" "I have had years to think about how much they hurt me," I responded. At 5:25, my phone began to ring. I just never had a reason to do anything about it until today. "Clayton." I didn't answer the phone. It rang right away again. I also turned that one down this time, "Victoria." The inflow of text messages began. Where are you, Clayton? The hospital called. Are you all right? Give me a call, Victoria. We're headed out. Be all right, please. Everyone is worried, Julian. Make a phone call. Tell us you're still alive. If this is some sort of joke, Patricia, it's not funny. Denise was shocked and shook her head when I read each note out loud to her. Did Patricia actually go there? She still believes you might be lying. I said, of course she does, since I am usually the issue. The first vehicle arrived at the emergency entry at 5:40. He got out of Clayton's SUV, left the engine running, and ran for the doors. Pale and drawn, Victoria came out of the passenger side. Following them, 2 further vehicles arrived, discouraging Leonard, Patricia, Julian, and a number of other people. As a panicked group of anxious relatives, they all hurried inside together. What comes next? Denise inquired. We can now see how long it takes them to recognize my absence, I said. And we watch what they do after that. We waited. It was 15 minutes later. 20, my phone kept buzzing and ringing with messages. 6 p.m. Clayton came out of the hospital by himself, holding his phone to his ear. I could see the bewilderment on his face even from this distance. When Denise remarked, "He is calling you." This time, I put it on speaker so Denise could hear me respond. Clayton's voice sounded desperate. Bella. You're where? According to the hospital, there is no documentation of your admission. Your description does not match any accident victims. What's happening? Calmly, I responded, I'm okay. It's actually quite fine. On the other end, there was silence. Are you sure you're okay? The hospital contacted us. You were in critical condition, they said. Did they? I asked naively. That's odd. Because I've spent the last 30 minutes watching you all freak out while sitting in a parking garage across the street. Then, more quiet. You intentionally did this. We thought you were dying because of you. I informed him, quietly but firmly, I heard what you said. What are you discussing? Clayton inquired. However, his tone had altered. Something else had taken the place of the panic. Perhaps fatigue. Or shame. I stated I got there early. As I had anticipated, at 4:25. I heard everything you said about me in the backyard as soon as I entered your home and placed my potato salad on the counter. I believed he had hung up because the silence on the other end of the line was so long. Listen, Bella. No, you pay attention. I cut you off. You mentioned that I was simply here to boast. Victoria mentioned that if there was an accident and I didn't show up, that would be wonderful. Everyone laughed, I heard. Everyone. Clayton. Jokes about my death were funny to our whole family. It was merely a joke. Weakly, he said. By that, we meant nothing. It's a joke. I said it again. The way you make fun of my life, my choices, and my work has always been a joke. When Victoria tells me I have an exaggerated sense of self-worth or Patricia calls me insane, it's simply family teasing. Just fun, just jokes. Don't care that it hurts. I am a real person with real sentiments, but that doesn't matter. You're exaggerating, he said. And there it was. The contempt I'd experienced all my life. So we joked around. This is not justified by that. We all panicked because of you. Victoria was in tears. Patricia nearly passed out. We believed you to be deceased. Good, I said plainly. You now understand what it's like to genuinely care about me for 5 minutes. But I have a feeling that most of you were more concerned with the appearance than with my getting wounded. Doesn't that seem unfair? Clayton, tell me, when was the last time you gave me a call to check on me? When was the last time I felt important to any of you? For that, he had no response. Victoria's high-pitched, irate voice could be heard in the background. Please hand me the phone. A scuffling sound was heard. Then there was Victoria on the line. What's wrong with you? Are you aware of the suffering you have caused us? Bella, this is sick. This is really sick. You wanted me to have an accident. I reminded her. It would be good if I didn't show up, you remarked. Everyone chuckled. I wasn't being literal. It was exaggerated. You always take things so seriously, God. This is precisely the reason we can't tolerate your presence. Everything becomes a drama because of you. Do I make things dramatic? I asked with genuine disbelief. Victoria, you actually thought I was going to die for 40 minutes in the hospital emergency department. Drama is what that is. A lesson is what I'm doing at the moment. A lesson, she spat. You have hallucinations. You require assistance. Expert assistance. Perhaps, I said. Perhaps I simply require a family that does not treat me like trash. People were gathered around the phone now, and I could hear other voices. Julian made reference to overreaction. Patricia accuses me of being immature. I'm always looking for attention, so Leonard said this was typical of me. I interrupted their conversation to say, I want you all to understand something. I had wonderful news when I arrived for that cookout today. I couldn't wait to tell you about it. I reasoned that perhaps they would be pleased for me this time. Perhaps they will notice that I have put in a lot of effort and accomplished something noteworthy. Back on the phone, Clayton replied, we would have been happy for you. Would you have pulled this act instead of just showing up like a regular person? I posed a challenge. Or, like you always do, like you were doing before I even got here, would you have grinned in my face and made fun of me behind my back? No response. I added, I have a new job. Director of Sunset Hospitality Group's marketing. A staff of 12 individuals reporting to me, 6 properties throughout the Southwest, a $130,000 salary, and complete benefits. I was proud of the opportunity, which is the largest of my career. I wanted to have a family celebration. Victoria simply congratulated him. Are you happy now? Are we all able to return home? You still don't understand, I remarked quietly. Not one of you does. This had nothing to do with the work, the party, or even your nasty remarks. This is intended to demonstrate to you what it's like to care about me for the first time in your lives. To be concerned about me. To experience genuine human emotion, not derision or disdain, directed at me. You are important to us. Clayton objected. We are related. No, even in jest, I stated that family members do not desire one another dead. Family members don't make fun of each other's achievements. A person's family shouldn't make them feel so unworthy that they would sooner vanish than spend another second with them. Now what? Victoria inquired. Do you want an apology? All right. I apologize. We're all sorry. Can we go on? No, I repeated. I'm done, so we can't move on. I'm done acting like this is commonplace or appropriate. I have finished apologizing to each and every one of you. I'm done hoping that one day you'll start being genuinely courteous and respectful to me. Are you interrupting us? With a tone of incredulity, Clayton inquired. Over this? For the rest of your life? I made the correction. The last straw was today. The realization that I will always be nothing more than a punching bag, a joke, and someone to denigrate in order to boost your self-esteem. Patricia mentioned that I was ungrateful for everything that they had done for me over the years, including the birthday celebrations they had invited me to and the holidays they had included me in. It seemed as though they had generously given me the gift of fundamental inclusion. Whatever Clayton was about to say was interrupted as I said, I have to go. I spent $20 making the potato salad that's on your counter. It's yours to keep. Think of it as my last gift to this family. Hold on, Bella. I sat back in the passenger seat of Denise's car, hung up, shut off my phone entirely, and exhaled a long, trembling breath. After a while, Denise said, Holy hell. That was really intense. That was required, I said. We watched as my family, bewildered and furious, slowly left the hospital and gathered in the parking lot to probably talk about what had happened. Clayton's face was flushed, and he was making crazy gestures. Victoria shook her head and crossed her arms. Because of Julian's guarded demeanor, Patricia appeared to be lecturing him. None of them displayed regret, but they all appeared angry, irritated, and inconvenienced. Denise noted, they really don't get it, do they? No, y concurret. They do not, but I do, and that is what matters. When I got up the following morning, I found that my phone had exploded with alerts throughout the previous night. I made the error of turning it back on at 7 a.m. even though I had already shut it off while brewing coffee in my condo in downtown Phoenix. 17 voicemails, more than 100 text messages, and 63 missed calls. As my coffee brewed, I browsed through them, reading the messages' evolution with an odd sense of disinterest. The first few that were sent out right away following our phone conversation yesterday were irate. Clayton accuses me of being manipulative and immature. Victoria said that I had gone too far. Patricia insists that I apologize to everyone for causing them any sorrow. However, at approximately 9 p.m. it changed tone last night. Julian. Hey, I discussed what you overheard with Clayton. That was a mess. I apologize. I hardly knew this aunt. I wasn't involved in those jokes. That is what I want you to know. I hadn't spoken to my cousin in years. Heard about the incident. Sometimes, family may be toxic. You must take care of yourself. Then, at midnight, Clayton sent a lengthy text. What you mentioned has been on my mind. Perhaps we haven't treated you fairly. Perhaps we have assumed too much about you. Can we have a conversation? Don't merely debate. Actually talk. I read the message 3 times while sipping my coffee. I wanted to believe it, part of me. Wanted to believe that perhaps something had reached them at last. However, I had already traveled this path. When the drama subsided, the apologies that came too quickly disappeared. The vows to improve lasted for as long as it took them to forget their original motivation. None of the mail received a response from me. Rather, I put on my favorite navy jacket and the pearl earrings I had purchased for myself when I received the promotion and prepared for work. I was presenting a thorough marketing plan to the management team at 10 a.m. today, my second week at Sunset Hospitality Group. That was what I needed to think about, not family strife. Everything about the presentation went perfectly. As I presented the digital advertising strategy one had created, our CEO, Kathleen, a shrewd lady in her 50s, nodded in agreement. I had well-reasoned responses to every question posed by the other executives. Kathleen had given her approval to my entire budget and schedule by the time we were done at 11:30. She replied, "Excellent work," as the conference room filed out. I knew that hiring you was the right decision. Around 1 p.m., my assistant, a happy 24-year-old named Tyler, knocked on my doorframe. "Someone is here to see you." "Your brother?" That was my assistant. I floated back to my office on the 3rd floor, high on professional validation. This was what mattered. This was real. Not the opinions of people who had never believed in me anyway. My good mood vanished in an instant when he said, "I have an important appointment. Clayton is here. Should I tell him you are busy?" I thought about it. A part of me wanted to hide in my office until he left, but another part of me, the part that had planned yesterday's hospital drama, wanted to confront this head-on and find out what he truly wanted. "Give me 5 minutes." I answered, then sent him in. After giving a nod, Tyler vanished. I took those 5 minutes to gather my thoughts and remind myself that I had changed since I had shown up at the barbecue yesterday in the hopes of being accepted. I was a person who had crossed a boundary and would no longer be devalued. 5 minutes later, Clayton showed up in my doorway, looking awkward in jeans and a polo shirt in the business casual office setting. His gaze scanned my area. The office on the corner with the view of the city center. My wall is covered in framed marketing trophies. Behind me, I could see the city sprawling out. He said, "Nice office," but I wasn't sure if he meant it or if it was just another covert jab. "Thank you," I said calmly in response. "What are you doing here, Clayton?" He asked as he entered and shut the door. "We must speak. Talk a lot. I'm at work." I mentioned that I had all afternoon meetings. "You could have called and said anything you needed to say. I didn't want to talk to you, which is why you weren't picking up your phone." It startled me that he flinched at that. Clayton was rarely vulnerable. "Come on, Bella. I made the trip downtown by car. Give me 10 minutes, please." I looked at my computer's clock. 1:15, at 2, I had my next meeting. "All right. 10 minutes. Across from my desk, he took a seat on a chair and combed through his hair. I saw that he appeared exhausted. Greater than his age of 42. After we all left the hospital last night, I spoke with everyone. Genuinely discuss with them how we handle you. Additionally, some individuals were defensive. Patricia in particular. She believes you were too sensitive and that you overreacted. The standard fare. He hesitated. However, Julian made a point. He claimed that we wouldn't have all hurried to the hospital if we truly believed that feelings weren't important. We wouldn't have gone into a panic. You do care about me, then? I said, you just don't like me. I'm supposed to feel better after that. I'm not saying that at all. With his elbows resting on his knees, he leaned forward. To put it another way, we do give a damn. We simply aren't good at displaying it. We have developed a habit of treating you as though you were still that obnoxious little sister who followed us about and insisted on being noticed. However, you are no longer that person. It's been a while since you were. That is who you decided I was because it made it easier to dismiss me, I continued quietly, but I was never that person. He nodded slowly after taking that in. Perhaps you are correct. Perhaps our mental image of you served as justification for how we treated you. I don't know. What I do know is that yesterday scared the living daylights out of me. Every thought I had was of our last conversation, which took place 3 months ago at Mom's birthday dinner, during which I made a joke about your dating life that caused you to leave early. When I told him I was content with my life as it was, he laughed and said I was just making excuses. I left before dessert was served. I don't want that to be my last memory of you. I recalled that dinner, when he had asked loudly in front of everyone if I was ever going to settle down or if I was going to be single forever. So, what do you want? I asked in a neutral tone. I refused to make this easy for him. Clayton shifted in his chair, obviously uncomfortable, and I said, I want us to start over. Not pretend like nothing happened, but actually try to build something different, something better. Start over how? Clayton asked. He gestured around my office, saying, that is messed up, Bella. That is not how family should be. Family should not joke about each other dying. He said, I did not even know you had this job until yesterday. I did not know what company you worked for, what you did all day, or any of it. He said, family dinners, just talking, getting to know each other as adults instead of being stuck in these roles we have been playing since childhood. He looked at me and said, I am sincerely sorry. I wanted to believe him because the needy, desperate part of me that had spent 35 years trying to win their approval wanted to cling to this apology and hold it close. I pointed out that you are right. It shouldn't. And I am sorry. Not just sorry that you overheard it, but sorry that we said it in the first place. What about Victoria? I asked. Are they also sorry? Or are you here to try to make things normal for the family? Victoria is conflicted. He acknowledged that she believes what you did yesterday was wrong, but she also understands why you did it. Patricia is still angry. However, the logical part, the part that had listened to them laugh about my possible death, remained skeptical. I know how it sounds, but Patricia is set in her ways, and she is not going to change overnight, so why should I return? She believes that you manipulated us and that we should not reward that behavior by apologizing. Reward, I repeated, tasting the bitterness of the word, as if basic respect is some sort of prize I need to earn. I asked directly, what's the point if half the family still believes I'm the problem and nothing will really change? Clayton remained silent for a while, but I felt compelled to try before leaving, even though I knew there might not be any point and that we might have irreparably damaged this. He took out his phone, scrolled for a moment, and then turned it toward me. I saw dozens of messages, too many to read from this distance, but I caught phrases like, need to do better, she deserves an apology, and we have been awful. You are not the one walking away, I said. I am. I already did. Then let me walk toward you instead, he said. Let me show you that I am serious about this. I didn't reach for the phone. What side are you on? Yours. Clayton explained, this began last night and has been going on all morning. People are taking sides, arguing about what happened, some defending you, some defending the family. It's a mess, but at least we are finally talking about it openly instead of pretending everything is fine. I am on your side. Maybe I haven't been before, but I am now," he replied without hesitation. "Why?" I said, really intrigued. "Why now?" "Because I scared you. Because I finally fought back. Because I realized something yesterday," he continued, putting his phone in his pocket. "I didn't consider all the obnoxious things you do or the methods you purport to seek attention while I believed you were dying." When he said that last sentence, his voice cracked slightly, and I realized with shock that Clayton was actually emotional, real emotion, not performative guilt. "I thought about the time you drove 6 hours to help me move when everyone else was busy and how you always remember my kids' birthdays, even though I can't remember yours." I looked at him across my desk, this man who had tortured me as a child, rejected me as an adult, and sought to locate the brother I had once admired. He went on, "I don't want to lose my sister. I don't want to be the type of person who only appreciates someone when they are gone. So, I am here asking for a chance. One chance to prove that we can be better." Clayton was the coolest person in the world when I was 7 and he was 14. He could play guitar and skateboard, and he always had the right thing to say. However, somewhere along the line, that relationship had turned toxic, but perhaps there was still something redeemable hidden deep beneath. The words, "just you and me, no Victoria, no Patricia, no extended family, just us," flashed across his face as he spoke. "We talk. Really talk. And if I feel like you are being genuine, like you actually understand why what happened was so hurtful, then maybe we can talk about slowly rebuilding." "Okay, yes. When?" "Saturday night at 7 p.m. You choose a nice restaurant and pay. This is your apology, not a casual get-together where we split the check." "Done," he said right away. "I'll text you the specifics." And Clayton, I waited until he looked me in the eyes. "If you mess this up, if you revert to your old habits, or if you try to minimize what happened, that's it." A part of me felt victorious because I had stood my ground, established clear boundaries, and forced Clayton to come to me on my terms. I am done for good. No second chances, no guilt trips, no family obligations. "Understood. Understood," he said solemnly. I sat at my desk for a long time after he left. However, another part of me felt worn out. Why did I have to traumatize my own family into seeing me as a human being? Tyler knocked on my doorframe once more. "Your 2 p.m. is here. Also, are you okay? You look stressed." "Family stuff," I said, forcing a smile. I took out my small mirror and checked my makeup to make sure there was no sign of the intense chat I had just had. "I am fine. Give me 2 minutes." I then picked up my tablet containing the presentation notes, fixed my blazer, and went outside to meet my 2 p.m. appointment with professionalism and assurance. Because I was now a successful professional with limits and self-respect, not the family scapegoat or the person frantically looking for approval. And my family didn't deserve any version of me at all if they couldn't accept that version of me. The remainder of the week flew by as I worked and purposefully ignored my phone. I had disabled all family notifications so that I could only be contacted directly by close friends and coworkers. To be honest, being free of the incessant background noise of family conflict was freeing. Building my new marketing efforts and establishing myself at Sunset Hospitality Group would be my sole emphasis. By Friday afternoon, I had negotiated a low rate with a well-known advertising firm and established ties with 3 significant travel influencers. At 4 p.m., Kathleen called me into her office to commend me on the advancement. With sincere gratitude in her voice, she replied, "You have done more in 2 weeks than my previous marketing director did in 6 months. I hope you understand how important you are to this business." Those words struck a different chord than they ought to. Hearing that I was useful almost brought tears to my eyes after a lifetime of being undervalued by my family. Basic professional recognition shouldn't have seemed revolutionary. "I did it, thank you. That is very significant." "I mean it," Kathleen added. "I want you to spearhead the marketing strategy for our upcoming significant expansion. 3 states have new properties. It would result in a larger team and a sizable raise. Do you want to?" "Yes, without hesitation," I said. "Excellent. Details will be discussed next month. However, I wanted to let you know that I had bigger plans for you." Here, you have a genuine future. I felt lighter than I have in years as I walked out of her office. A future. Not merely surviving or making ends meet, but a real future filled with development, opportunity, and acknowledgement. I had spent my entire career striving for this. As I was preparing my desk for the weekend, I heard Clayton's text ping on my phone. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock, reservations at the Orchard House. Anticipating it. I took a long look at the message before answering. I'll see you there. One of Phoenix's best dining establishments, the Orchard House was renowned for its farm-to-table fare and cozy setting. Clayton seemed to be taking this seriously, or at least comprehending the task, based on the fact that he had selected it over a casual chain eatery. The kind of warm, clear weather that first drew people to Arizona was here on Saturday. Denise, my sounding board for anything family-related, and I hiked Camelback Mountain in the morning. As we made our way through the rocky trail, she inquired, "Are you nervous?" No, surprisingly. I acknowledged that I believe I've come to the stage where I honestly don't give a damn about what occurs. Great if supper goes well. I've already come to terms with cutting them off if it doesn't. It's healthy, Denise stated with approval. You are no longer going in a desperate attempt to win their approval. You are entering from a strong position. I said it only took 35 years. Riley. By 6:30 that night, I had my hair tied back in a sleek ponytail and was wearing a basic black dress and heels. I made a conscious effort to look put together and professional. Clayton had always written me off as a little sister, but I wanted him to view me as the successful woman I had grown into. At precisely 7 o'clock in the evening, I reached the Orchard home. Clayton was already there, sitting in a real suit at a corner table. That caught me off guard. Clayton claimed he didn't have to dress up for anyone because of his success in real estate development. Thus, he lived in casual attire. It meant something that he had dressed in a suit for this meal. When I got close, he stood up. "You look fantastic." I sat across from him and said, "Thank you. Nice outfit." He sat back down and answered, "I thought the occasion called for it." I placed a wine order. "I hope that's all right. Wine is good." As the waiter took our orders and poured our drinks, we engaged in light conversation. The typical safe subjects, weather, work, but Clayton's shoulders were tense, as seen by his constant fumbling with his napkin. It was unusual for him to be nervous. I made the decision to speak with the server directly after it had left. "You appear uneasy." "I am," he said. "I've been considering what to say and how to explain things for the entire week, but I keep coming to the same conclusion. No justification exists. It's not acceptable for any reason. So, I said plainly, don't make excuses. Tell me the truth, please. Why did you all behave that way toward me?" Evidently organizing his thoughts, he took a long gulp of wine. "It probably began when you were a teenager. At the time, I thought you were really dramatic, emotional, and serious about everything. Additionally, I was a cool older brother who had little time for the feelings of adolescent girls. I began to laugh at your expense and discard you as a result. After that, it turned into a habit. The others simply joined in. Victoria always followed my example, so she did. Despite being 3 years younger than me, she has always sought my approval. She thus imitated my actions. Patricia then began doing it because she found it amusing. From there, it just got worse until you were viewed by the whole family as the punchline to a joke that no one else considered funny." "But I wasn't a joke," I muttered. "I was an actual person suffering from actual cruelty." "Now I know that," he said. "However, at the time, I persuaded myself that you were too sensitive, that you needed to become tougher, and that by methodically dismantling me, we were assisting you in becoming more resilient. There is no excuse, as I mentioned." He looked directly into my eyes. "I was mean. All of us were. The saddest part is that no one questioned it anymore since it had become so commonplace. All we did was make fun of Bella. It was customary." Our lengthy talk was cut short when the waiter brought our appetizers. The weight of his admission hung between us while we ate in quiet for a few minutes. "Is there anything I can tell you?" "Eventually," Clayton said. "I've never told anyone about it." I gave a nod. "You have always made me envious." I was astonished by that. What is the object of jealousy? Of your tenacity, your will to keep trying in spite of all obstacles. He put his fork down. What would have occurred if I had received the same treatment from our family as you did? After the first year, I would have stopped talking to everyone. I would have left without turning around. However, you persisted in trying, turning up, and holding out hope that we would change. I retorted, that is not resilience. Desperation is what that is. Perhaps, but it's also a strength, and I never acknowledged it. The rest of the dinner proceeded with an honesty I had never encountered with Clayton. He talked to me about his personal hardships and the pressure he had to be the more successful of his siblings. The way he had made himself feel better about his own inadequacies by disparaging me. It gave me context I had never had before, but it did not justify his actions. Over the main course, he acknowledged, my first thought was not that I was proud of you when you got that marketing director job. I felt threatened at first because I assumed you were earning more money than I was for your age. I therefore downplayed it and made it appear less significant than it actually was rather than congratulating you. He replied plainly, I noticed that when I brought up the new job at Mom's birthday dinner, you changed the topic within 30 seconds because you could not stand the idea of me succeeding. How messed up is that? My own sister accomplished something amazing, and I felt threatened rather than happy. I agree. At least you now realize it. I want to change, not just for you but also for myself, because it is exhausting to be that person who destroys his own family in order to feel better. I'm small and angry because of it. I looked at him across the table, looking for performative guilt or manipulation, but all I saw was sincere regret and a man who appeared sick of being the bad guy in his own story. I murmured, I forgive you, in a hushed voice, and I was surprised by the words. His face filled with relief, I forgive you so I can move forward with my life, whether that includes you or not. He said, not because what you did was okay, not because I am ready to jump back into family dinners and holiday celebrations, but because holding on to this anger is not serving me anymore. That's probably more than I deserve. I agreed. But here's the thing, Clayton, forgiveness doesn't mean that things will return to normal. It just means that I'm letting go of the grudge. You still need to gain my trust again and demonstrate that this is more than just a passing guilt by acting consistently. I know. What do you want from me? Accountability, I responded right away. You call it out if you see Victoria, Patricia, or anybody else making jokes about me. You don't just laugh along with it or keep quiet. You actively defend me. Done. And honesty. We talk about it like adults. Done. And boundaries. If I say I need space or that something is off limits, you respect that without questioning or guilt tripping. Done. He repeated. If you feel threatened, jealous, or competitive, you tell me straight instead of turning it into cruelty. I told him, I am in this for the long haul, Bella. However long it takes. We concluded dinner with lighter conversation, discussing his children and my new duties at work. This does not get fixed in one dinner. It will take months, maybe years, of consistent behavior before I fully trust you again. You need to be okay with that. I am okay with that. By the time dessert came, we had changed, not back to the destructive connection we had had before, but forward into something new, hesitantly hopeful. Clayton stopped me as we were leaving for the parking lot. I have a friend who used to work in healthcare, and she made the call. It was convincing, he admitted. Terrifying, actually. Those 40 minutes at the hospital were the worst of my life. Good, I said without sympathy. You needed to feel that. Can I ask you something? The hospital thing. How did you pull that off? I smiled a little. You all did. You're right. We did. He paused. Will you tell everyone it was staged or let them continue to believe it was real? I honestly said, I haven't decided yet. Part of me wanted them to know so they know I'm not a victim, but another part of me felt the lesson would be more effective if they thought it was real. Victoria figured it out, he said. After we left, she called other hospitals, and when none of them had any records of an accident involving your name, she pieced it together. She is obviously angry because she now has to face the reality that she wished me dead and meant it enough that she thought it actually happened. Clayton smiled at that. You did outweed all of us. I will give you that. Are you going to talk to her? Eventually, but not until she is ready to have the same conversation we just had, until she is ready to take genuine responsibility instead of simply being upset that I outsmarted her. I drove home feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Not because everything was fixed, because it wasn't. But because I had shown myself that I could stand up for myself and survive. That I could demand better treatment and walk away if I didn't get it. And that I was worth fighting for, even if I had to be the one doing the fighting. We said goodbye in the parking lot, and for the first time in as long as I could remember, the hug he gave me felt genuine. When the doorman at my building called, "Someone here to see you." Says her name is Victoria. I was still in my pajamas, drinking coffee, and reading the news when he said, "Someone's here to see you." I almost told him to send her away, but curiosity won out. And she showed up at my door 3 minutes later. Looking worn out, without makeup, with her hair in a messy ponytail. Wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweatshirt. This was not the well-groomed, well-mannered sister I was accustomed to seeing. "May I enter?" Victoria asked. "Clayton told me about your dinner, and I stepped aside to let her in." She then proceeded straight to my living room and sat on the couch, putting her arms around herself. "Okay," I said neutrally, sitting in the armchair across from her, "and I have been up all night thinking about it, about everything." "I have been a terrible sister," Victoria said, her eyes rimmed with red. "Yes," I agreed. "You have." She flinched but did not argue. "I owe you an apology. A real one, not the half-hearted one I gave you on the phone at the hospital." Victoria took a shaky breath. "It would be nice if there was an accident and you never showed up. But when I got that call from the hospital, when I thought you were actually dying, I realized something horrible. I was just being mean because it was easy and made everyone laugh to make fun of you." She paused, tears welling up. "For those 40 minutes when I thought you were in critical condition. All I could think about was how I would have to deal with the knowledge that I had wished you dead and my final comments about you. How I would have to tell my children that their aunt had passed away and that my last remarks about her had been petty and nasty." I asked, "And then you found out it was staged?" "I later discovered that it had been staged. And my initial response was one of rage. Because it was easier to be angry than to face the guilt. It was easier than acknowledging that my harshness was genuine, even though the accident wasn't." Her tears were brushed away. "I wanted evidence that you were lying, so I called other hospitals. I wanted to use ammunition against you. And I felt vindicated when I verified there had been no accident. You see, as we always said, she is dramatic and manipulative," I told myself. However, I actually spent yesterday and last night considering why you did it. As well as what it must have been like to show up early for a family barbecue, eager to convey good news. Only to hear your whole family laughing at your possible demise instead. Bella, I also felt ill. Physically ill." Her voice broke as she leaned forward. "When it comes to you, I dislike who I am. I don't like who I've become, and I'm not sure how to change it. But if you don't mind, I'd want to try." For a long time, I sat with that. "You did it, but why? For how long did you treat me like that?" To be honest, Clayton did. Additionally, I've always aspired to be like Clayton. The cool elder brother was him. And if mocking you was what he approved of, then I did it. After that, it turned into a habit." She gave a headshake. "I never gave much thought as to how it might have affected you. To me, it was never merely a joke," I muttered. "It was unrelenting criticism. They were trying to make it feel insignificant and unworthy. Now that I am aware of that, I sincerely apologize. What I don't comprehend is this. Victoria, you lead a nice life. Why did you feel the need to disparage me in order to feel good about yourself?" I asked. She remained silent for a while, which I believe was due to your constant confidence. "You continued to try and show up even after we broke you down, which made me feel inadequate. I didn't appreciate that. Instead, I resented it. You tried to break me, and I succeeded." "Yes," she whispered. "I nearly succeeded, didn't I?" "You nearly did," I confessed, "but words are easy. Behavior is what counts, and I haven't seen any proof that anyone's behavior is going to change yet. What can I do?" Victoria pleaded frantically. Accountability. You shut it down if you hear Patricia or anyone else making jokes about me. And I need time, Victoria. I need to see sustained change before I can fully trust you again. She stood, wiping away the last of her tears. And I understand, and I will prove it to you, however long it takes. Done. And no more comparing my life to yours. No more comments about my dating life or career choices or anything else that is none of your business. Done. You won't believe who just came up to my apartment, so I contacted Denise after she left. I told her everything, and she listened before asking, "Do you believe her?" I acknowledged, "I think I do," but I also knew that people could be serious at one point before reverting to their old habits. I am cautiously optimistic as a result. You should be cautiously optimistic, Denise remarked. That is healthy. Changes occurred in the weeks that followed. Victoria was true to her word. She actively defended me in family conversations, shut down negative comments, and made an effort to include me genuinely rather than obligatorily. Clayton began texting me on a regular basis about everyday life stuff, funny memes, articles he thought I would find interesting, and updates about his kids. It was the kind of casual sibling communication I had always wanted. The real test came at Thanksgiving, when Patricia was hosting and I was invited. Patricia, predictably, remained resistant, insisting that I had overreacted, but the rest of the family was moving on without her. And she found herself more and more alone when she made critical remarks that no one laughed at anymore. I went, but I arrived with an escape plan, parked where I could leave easily, and told Denise to call me with a fake emergency if necessary. Clayton personally called to extend the invitation, making it clear that I was welcome but not required. "If you come, I promise to shut down any negativity immediately," he said, "and if you do not come, I completely understand." Although Patricia gave me a coy but kind greeting, the first hour was difficult. Clayton and Victoria were protective of me, guiding the conversation away from sensitive subjects. And Victoria instantly responded, "Actually, I love it," when Patricia made a sarcastic remark about my vegetarian dish. "Bella, could you email me the recipe?" Clayton interrupted an uncle who was making a joke about my single status by saying, "Bella's personal life is her business." After Thanksgiving, Clayton took me away, but by dinner time, I was at ease enough to enjoy myself, and, for the first time in years, I felt like I belonged with the family instead of being an outsider. "I appreciate you coming. I am aware that it was difficult. You and Victoria did a terrific job," I said, "and it wasn't as difficult as I had anticipated. When we promised to protect you, we meant it. Our sister is you. This is what we ought to have been doing all along." I thought back on the previous 2 months' travels as I drove home that evening. It had been messy, unpleasant, and necessary, from hearing those hurtful words to planning the fictitious medical emergency to gradually mending relationships, and I had discovered that while I couldn't make others change, I could manage my own limits. 2 weeks after Thanksgiving, Patricia finally reached out, not with an apology but with an invitation to coffee. I had learned that forgiveness did not mean accepting bad behavior but rather letting go of resentment while protecting myself. I had also learned that sometimes the only way to get people to see you is to show them what it would be like to lose you. Curious to find out what she wanted, I accepted. We met at a cafe close to her house, and for the first hour she spoke about everything from the weather to her garden to her neighbor's new dog. At last, I asked, "Patricia, why did you invite me here?" "Because everyone keeps saying I owe you an apology, and I have been too stubborn to admit they are right," she said, delicately setting down her coffee cup. "But they're right," she said, pausing. "I treated you cruelly during that barbecue and for years prior. And I became defensive when you pointed that out to us. I apologize, Bella. I'm very sorry." Although it wasn't the most poetic apology, it was sincere. Her eyes told me that admitting her mistake had cost her something. "Thank you," was all I said. The months that followed brought further development. Clayton and Victoria continued their efforts, demonstrating through consistent action that their apologies were sincere, and they included me in family gatherings without making it feel forced. I appreciate that. After that conversation, we did not become close, but the hostility subsided. Patricia treated me with basic respect, which was all I had ever really wanted. They asked about my life with genuine curiosity rather than judgment. They stood up for me when others made rash remarks. And I kept doing well at Sunset Hospitality Group. In January, the promotion Kathleen had mentioned became official, along with a big raise and more responsibility. I established a team that respected my leadership, a professional reputation I was proud of, and a life that felt authentic and fulfilling, surrounded by people who valued me. Looking back on that day at the barbecue, when I overheard their cruelty, I realized it had been a turning point in my life. I also maintained careful boundaries with my family, attending some events and skipping others based on my own needs rather than obligation. The phony hospital call had been drastic, perhaps even cruel in its own way. But it had achieved what years of open communication had failed to. It made my family truly fear losing me, face the reality of my absence, and realize that their treatment of me had real repercussions. It had allowed me to stop pleading for scraps of affection and to demand the respect I deserved instead. Patricia was forced to face her own reality when family members, emboldened by my stance, began criticizing her behavior toward everyone, making her feel more and more alone at events. And her scathing remarks were met with awkward silence rather than laughter. In a matter of months, she had softened considerably and become more circumspect in her speech, finally realizing that cruelty no longer earned her social currency. Clayton lost a significant client because they saw how he talked about family and decided they did not want to work with someone who lacked basic integrity in personal relationships. Victoria threw herself into being a better sister and discovered that the communication skills she developed also improved her marriage and friendships. The impact on his finances was so great that it caused him to rethink all of his relationships, and the whole family dynamic changed forever. People were now more cautious when making cruel jokes because they knew I would not put up with abuse and that others might follow my example and demand better treatment. As for me, I created a life I was proud of, one in which I was respected and cherished. And I discovered that standing up for yourself is not selfish but rather vital. And that sometimes the most effective thing you can do is to demonstrate to others what losing you looks like. Sometimes retaliation is about rebuilding, about dismantling unhealthy behaviors and replacing them with better ones, even if it involves startling people into awareness first. As I reflect on my quest for vengeance, I see that the biggest triumph was not in causing them pain but rather in overcoming my desire for their approval and realizing that my value had never been dependent on their approval in the first place.